to talk about pain. Now that's something that everybody experiences, pretty much. But there's actually two types of pain, I guess, we talk about. We talk about body pain, physical pain, and we talk about emotional pain or psychological pain. And it's amazing how in the brain these two are very similar. They use very similar parts of the brain, the brain cortex, the pain system in the brain. So in the essence of pain is that it's there to tell us to pay attention. Notice this and do something about it. Now, when we have physical pain, that's exactly what it's saying. Notice this and do something about it. This is a problem. This is somewhere that needs attention. And if it's in psychic pain or emotional pain, it's saying this is something you need to do something about. This is something that needs attention. Same thing. Now, we have in our emotional pain things like loss and things like the sort of upset that comes from that. But we have a big set of emotional disturbance and pain that comes from being rejected by the group, by being disconnected, by being isolated. And this is really important because when we were evolving, being separated from the tribe, or particularly being distanced or being ejected by the tribe, well, that was probably a fatal situation. So those sorts of social things register in our brain as pain. And we need to deal with them. Now, physical pain is something that you need to not only pay attention to and act on, but you need to keep an eye on it. And this is something, it's a longer argument, but when we have painkillers and we have a lot of things that reduce pain, that by reducing it completely, sometimes what we do is we stop paying attention to the needs that the pain is trying to induce and incline us to move towards, and we actually make things worse. And much later we find that our problem is even worse. So there's a balance that needs to be found between reducing pain to make it bearable and manageable and removing pain so that you live an unaware, improving, unbenefiting life. So that's a bigger story, but be aware of that and think about that a little. But there are a number of things that we are doing now to try and relieve these psychic aches, these emotional pains, and put ourselves in a balance. Now, if you haven't read the Win or Lose a World book, How the Real World Drives Us Crazy, I'll be doing a brain blast about that later, and so we'll have a little bit more at that, and that's one of the pains, not living up to the expectations of the world. But there are a number of processes. We've been doing a lot now of mindfulness. That's a big thing. Of actually finding being in the present, that you can be in the present and not give a lot of these things that you're thinking about any sort of importance. Sort of saying, well, they're there, I see they're there, I acknowledge it. Now you can do this with psychic and emotional pain and biological pain. That's one of the ways in which you can say, I know the pain is there, but I'm not going to give it a lot of energy. I'm not going to give it a lot of work. Because there is also quite a strong discussion about the way in which we experience pain is very individual. The stimulus that comes from the body, sure, that comes up from the nerve endings and so on and so forth. But once it gets into the brain, we then start to have an opinion about that pain, based on our past experience, based on what other people have told us, based on a whole series of issues about our environment and what's around in our background, what's in our culture. So pain's a very interesting expression within our own lives. But mindfulness is one. Another way we do is a distraction. So we just think of something else. Look over there, squirrel, this sort of stuff. But in really serious areas, and Patch Adams, the wonderful clown doctor who started that and clown doctors in the hospitals, they use distraction enormously well to move people away from their pain. And certainly one of the things that their distraction is to do unusual things, surprising things that stimulate curiosity and wonder and amazement. So there's the curiosity approach there in distraction. We also distort things, so we do a distortion, saying I'm bigger than this. I'm going to make me 10 feet tall and my pain 2 inches tall. So this distortion can be very, very useful. We can differentiate it. We can say the pain is over there but I'm over here. We can dissociate from the pain. And sometimes people do this to benefit, but also that can be done to our disbenefit, particularly when we're having sort of, social rejection problems and saying, well, I don't care. I'm not going to talk to them anyway, and it doesn't apply to me, or I'm not. Rather than going, wow, this is interesting. Remember the 3 essentials? That's interesting. I wonder what this problem's really all about and what I can create from it. We can alter our focus of attention by using breathing. This is getting into the mindfulness, but also meditation. We can externalize. And there's various therapies. I use what's called a mirror hand approach. Some use visualizations by saying, I'm going to take myself to a lovely place, and they have a peaceful, pain-free place. Milton Erickson, the great psychotherapist, he would do this by shifting his pain into something that was bearable. He had a very sharp pain, so he would self-hypnotize himself and make it a long, stretching pain. And Ernest Rossi, my mentor, said to Erickson, so what, now you've got pain all the way down his arm. And he said, yeah, I can cope with pain all the way down my arm. I just can't cope with that huge pointed pain in my shoulder. And so it is that we can work with pain by altering the framework of our mental attitude, of our mental state. When I'm having big pains, why am I making it a big pain? How can I make this experience into something more manageable? Is it mindfulness? Is it externalization? Is it distraction? Is it distortion? Is it altered focus? Is it a technique like a mirror hand approach or a self-hypnosis? There's a bunch of things that we can do. Do you want to know more about this? Do you want us to do an actual program on this and bring in some experts and talk about it? Why don't you tell me that down in the comments board, and we'll see what we can do if we've got enough people that are interested. Because I've got some wonderful friends who could really give us some great advice, I'm sure. But for now, that's your brain blast. Think about pain. What are you doing, and how can you do something about it?